Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Business Class. Thank you so much for tuning in and getting me back in your ears, watching me, whatever it is that you're doing. For those of you that are watching, I would like to address the elephant in the room. Yes, I have got a McDonald's Diet Coke to my left. I know, linking back to my last episode or one of my latest episodes about perception, that does not make me look like a high level luxury brand, but I'm thirsty and I'm sorry, but McDonald's do a really good Diet Coke. So, jumping into what today's episode is about, and obviously my takeoffs and departures. Today's episode is one that I have had a really fun time planning, and that is psychology hacks for success. And I love a bit of psychology. I feel like we all know this now. And I love doing sneaky little things to get further in life, whether that's selling more or whether that's meeting the right people or getting habits done. So that's what we're going to get into today. In terms of my takeoffs and departures, my takeoff this week is that I have done a few more things alone recently. So if you've listened to me for a while or you've known me for a while, you know I am quite an anxious queen lady. Like, I love going to places. I love being social. That's not really the truth. I love meeting new people, experiencing new things, but I really struggle to do things by myself. So I've been going out on a lot more dog walks by myself, which again sounds so minor. If you're not like that, you're like, that's the easiest thing in the world. What are you talking about? But for me, it's really hard to do. So I'm going dog walks by myself. The other day I went to Sainsbury's by myself and I quite enjoyed it actually. So that is always like a really big pat on the back for me. I feel like, I don't know if anyone else relates to that, please do let me know, because I feel like I have actually not spoken to that many people that really struggle to do things by themselves. Everyone else that I speak to is like, I love doing things by myself. What are you talking about? And then it makes me feel really weird that I don't. My departure, I don't really know what I've put for my departure. I literally can't think of anything, which is really rare for me because I feel like I've always got something to whinge and moan about. But I suppose I just feel in general quite tired at the minute and my energy levels are a bit blur on the floor. I am actually going on holiday this weekend. Thank the holy heavens above. We're going to Turkey. So I guess that can be another takeoff. But yeah, I just feel tired. I just feel tired at the minute and I feel like I need a break. So I guess that's my departure. So let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Okay, so what I've done, if I keep looking at my phone, if you're watching, then this is why. I've basically compiled psychology tricks and hacks that I have used for, like I said, more selling, more success, more habit building, stuff that's really helped me grow. And then also I've done a bit of research on some other ones that I've not tried that I want to try. And some of these, when I tell people, they get mind blown by them and they're like, oh my God, that's changed my life. And some of these that I've heard and learned have changed my life. So let's dive in to what we've got. So the first one I'm going to start with, I know I've spoken about this until I'm blue in the face, but I always will, is my Hire Vicky alarms. So this is basically where I get an alarm notification on my phone every single hour of the day that says, would Hire Vicky be doing this? And whilst this may not be a psychology hack or trick, I feel like it is because it's basically you're constantly being reminded of your higher self and whether anything that you're doing in that moment is aligning with your higher self. If you don't do that, I would massively recommend doing that. And then something else quite similar to that I've been trying to implement into my daily routine and sort of just situations that might stress me out is saying to yourself, what would I do if I didn't care? Oh, and it's just so liberating to think like that sometimes. Like, you know, if you're like stressing about a text or an email or, oh my God, my post has only got 60 likes on Instagram or so-and-so's not messaged me. Like, what would you do if you didn't care? And then just doing that. I know that sounds really simple, but sometimes it's almost like you've got to like cosplay these situations. It's like, let's just pretend I'm someone that does not care. And I sometimes have to do that to pretend that I'm okay and that I'm not affected or stressed. And I have to say it enough times till I believe it. It's like the Mel Robbins let them theory. Like, she has to constantly say to herself, let them, let them, let them. And she had a really good segment in her book where it was about her friends went on like a holiday, like a girls' trip without her, and she wasn't invited. And I feel like we've all been in that situation where we might see people we love or care about, or like your friendship group or your family, they go out without you and you've not been invited. I feel like we've all been there. And it really gets to you and you think, have I done something? Do they not like me? And she had to just keep saying, let them. Like, I shouldn't have to convince someone to invite me. And she said in the book, she was like, it's not easy. I had to say let them to myself about 100 times before my brain stopped thinking about it. And she literally sat there and was like, let them, let them, let them, let them. And like, that is how harsh you have to be with your brain sometimes, because it's so much easier said than done for you to go, what would I do if I didn't care? I'm just not going to care. It's not that simple. So another one that I sort of wrote down, and I'm going to really butcher some of these pronunciations, I've got in here, the Zeigarnik effect. People remember unfinished tasks more than they remember finished ones. So if you are starting a project or something new, it's really good to either write down what that project or task is so that you can see it, or even worse, is to publicly share your goal, because the discomfort of not completing that will keep your mind, like your mind won't want to finish it. So a really good example of this is if you start like a TikTok series and it's like, this is day one of turning my side hustle into a full job. You are going to be held accountable for that because you've posted it online and you've told people what you're going to do. So like for me, I have like a whiteboard in my office where I'll write down in my little circle like 3 things I want to focus on, and they just stare at me every day until they get done. And that bothers me more than, like that bothers me seeing unfinished tasks. Whereas if I tick a task off, I'm like, yeah, but it bothers me more that things are unfinished. The next thing is that I've tried to implement is when you are having difficult conversations with people, whether that's team, family, friends, whatever, is turning criticism into compassion. And again, this is just like a little psychological way to avoid making people feel like you're like going at them and like poking at them. Because let's give an example here. Like, let's give a scenario. Say, for example, I'm managing my team and one of them is late every day, and maybe you've pulled them up on it a few times. You've said you're late. What's going on? Nothing's happened. Instead of criticizing them and saying, you've been late every day this week and it's not on, you want to turn it into compassion and almost like spin it back on them by saying, I've noticed you've been late, every day this week. Is everything okay? And making them feel like you care rather than poking at someone. And I feel like a big learning curve for me with team and managing people has been, I've always really beat myself up over being an emotional person and like an overthinker, but I've tried to lean more into emotions and use them as more of a power than something that I'm beating myself up over. So, for example, if I was speaking to the team and maybe they've handed in work late this week and your first reaction might be to feel angry and stressed and you're like, oh, I gave them this deadline. Why have they not reached it? Is I will try and a bit more compassionately say, I've noticed this was handed in late. Is there something that I could have done better to make the deadline clearer or to set you up with the right tools to get this done on time? Because a lot of the time as like leaders or managers, when you're angry, like when things are not being done as you've expected, it's really easy to just blame the people doing it. But sometimes it is that you've not set the expectations out right properly, if that makes sense. So I've just been trying to, when there is a situation maybe where I'm a bit angry, I'm a bit pissed off, it's not been done, I'll just try and think, how can I handle this with a bit more compassion? Because 9 times out of 10, people are just people. They make mistakes. I know there are some people in this world who just aren't good people and who do take the piss and who, shouldn't be on your team. But most of the time, people are just people and there's a reason why they are behaving in a certain way. So moving on to the next thing, we've got labeling. So this one I found really, really interesting. So when you label a person as a certain type of person, they will try to behave like that more to live up to your expectations. So say if you go on a sales call and you say like, oh, I can just tell you're just like me and you're a perfectionist or you're really funny, they are going to behave more in that way because you've labeled them as that. And they're like, oh, right, she thinks I'm funny. I'm going to need to be really funny now to live up to that. So you can do this in quite a manipulative way, where if you are on like a sales call, by slipping little words in there where you're like, I can tell you're just like me and you are, what's the word when someone buys without thinking? Compulsive. And you're like a compulsive buyer. You're just like me and, you know, you don't really think before you make a decision. With that, I mean, that is where you can get people to behave how you want them to. I feel like I tend to just do this unconsciously where I'll speak to someone and just be like, oh my God, I'm exactly like that. And just by building that closer relationship with people, especially on sales calls, it makes it easier to sell. So I don't believe in doing it for dark reasons, but I do think that it's easy to sell to people when you have a relationship with them or when they see themselves in you. So then we've got when you are speaking, so whether it's like now on a podcast or you're speaking on a sales call or you're speaking in a meeting room, the power of using your hands for speaking is insane, so powerful. And you can actually almost psychologically manipulate people with your hands. So let's say, for example, that you want someone to buy and you're selling to them on a call, you can literally, I mean, if you can't see me right now, this is probably quite hard to explain, but you can literally use your hands to almost tell them what they need to do through expression. So you could be like, okay, so we're going to put everything in this package for you for this special price. Like using the hands, people just trust it more and it's more expressive. People listen more. When you are listening to a speaker and they're not using your hands, like if I now don't speak with my hands, it feels really weird. I'm such a hand speaker. I need to speak with my hands all the time. And people just trust you more. You come across as being more confident. And I just think the power of using your hands to explain things is huge. So you can look into more psychological ways on how to do it, but people, again, can be very manipulative with how they use their hands to sell. I feel like moving my hands around a lot. If you're not watching this right now, you can't see how much I'm moving my hands. Then we've got things like pricing. Sorry, this is in a really random order. These are just things that have come to me literally when I'm asleep and I've gotten up and been like, oh, I need to add that to the list. So when you are pricing, it's not just down to, okay, how much is this thing that I'm pricing? There's so much more to it than that when we look at the psychology behind pricing something. So let's say you are a service-based provider, maybe you're a social media manager, I don't know, and you're pricing up your social media management packages. When you price things either too cheap or too expensive, that comes with a lot of expectations that you need to think about. So let's say, for example, I am like shopping online and I see a really cute jacket that I love. You know, when you see something straight away and you're like, I need that in my basket. And say I see the jacket is $6.99. In my head, I'm actually not going to buy that. And that could be a bargain. The jacket could be great. It could be $6.99. But in my head, I see it as it's cheap for a reason. Like, I'm going to stray away from that. It's probably not going to be very sustainably made. It's not going to last me long. It's probably going to be really cheap and fall apart. I'm not going to buy it. If I saw the jacket was £129, expectation-wise, you're thinking, oh, it's probably going to be really good quality, really well made. Like, you have all of these preconceptions. So sometimes when you are pricing up your services or your products, you actually need to think about what are people going to think with it. Like, that is sometimes how I make decisions. It's like when you go to a restaurant, you know that the more expensive food you're going to buy is most of the time going to be a lot nicer and use like better ingredients. You know, when it's cheaper, you're getting cheaper. So although when you are starting out, it's really tempting to price yourself low because you're like, I need clients and I need money, it can actually put people off your services. So when I was starting out, I priced myself at £100 per month. What the hell was I thinking? And yes, I got clients, but they would have known with that price that it was probably going to be a bit of a naff service. And the same if you're charging like £5,000 a month or like £10,000 a month for something, people will have expectations with that, and they'll probably think, okay, I'm going to get a lot for this. It's going to be the best. It's so clever when people price things in a particular way. And then you've also got the psychology behind numbers, which I find fascinating. So that is when you see at the shop something is like $9.99. You're like, why is it not just £10? It makes you feel like you're like getting a bargain. Because if you just saw £10, you're like, a tenner for that. But if it's $9.99, you're like, oh, yeah, it's $9.99. That makes sense. So using odd numbers as well is something that a lot of brands do to trick their consumers to thinking that they've got a really good deal for something. So say if you see a top is, £17.24, that is such a random number that in your head you're like, oh, it must be on sale. And so many brands do this, so many shops do this, because people are so used to seeing even numbers that seeing an odd number interrupts like their brain pattern. And I think it was like Mr. Beast was speaking about how he uses odd numbers to get more views. So he does, when you see like a 24-hour challenge where someone will go in, I don't know, stay overnight and stay in a haunted house for 24 hours. He said he would experiment with using odd numbers and it would do better because it interrupts the pattern that we see in our brain. Like we're used to going to the shop and buying things that are $7.99 or £10.50. We're not used to seeing something be like £6.23. Like that seems really odd. So he would do like spending 23 hours in a haunted mansion. You're like, why not 24? Or like spending 23 and a half hours. Like it interrupts the brain, and it sounds so simple, but we are such humans of creatures of habit, and we're used to seeing things a certain way. So when something interrupts that, you're like, oh. And linking that to a different type of numbering, if you will, not pricing, is statistics. So statistics are such a powerful way to sell. And again, using odd numbers is low-key a bit manipulative, to be honest, but it again disrupts the brain patterns. So one of my best pieces of advice for selling is to use statistics, because people love a statistic. They seem believable, although they're not always believable. So when you go on your website, even just saying like 97.3% of customers are satisfied, like that is just such an odd number that our brains think, yeah, that must be true. It's such a specific number. But if you say 100% of customers are satisfied, that sounds so fake. And you're like, that's just incorrect. When we see something like that stops our brain in its tracks, you're like, whoa, that seems really believable. It seems more believable. So I love a statistic. We put statistics on our website all the time. We'll be like, I don't know, we get 83.2% of clients to go viral. Obviously, you can't lie about it. You have got to have some factual evidence behind it. But people just see that and it's believable. So the next thing is speaking about the objection that I feel like we've all had as people in business, whatever it is that you do, is when people need time to make a decision. And sort of going back a bit to selling, when I was doing my sales calls for the agency, that is a massive objection that we had, is people, I would like nail my sales call. It would go really well. I would be like, well then, I've definitely just closed that. And then at the end, they would say, that sounds great, Vicky. I just need a bit of time to make a decision. And the thing with that objection is that they don't need more time to make a decision. They need more information. So if you think about when you want to buy something, so say if it's a bigger thing like a car or a handbag or whatever it is, you could just make that purchase on the spot, like really impulsively, which is something that I do. The reasons why we don't is obviously sometimes genuinely that person does need to maybe ask a member of their team. But when you start to let people go and go, yeah, just get back to me whenever, there's no urgency, they'll probably never get back to you and you've just lost out on that. So usually when someone says, I just need a bit of time, I will say, is there any further information I can give you to make that decision easier? because it usually is that people they don't need more time. They literally just need more information from you. And urgency is also, I wouldn't say it's a psychology trick, but creating urgency is really important for sales. So again, coming back to numbers and saying we only have 2 spots available currently, or we've only got 3 more days till we close our books. Creating urgency, it just gets things done faster. Again, don't lie, don't blag it, but just sharing a little bit of behind the scenes is really helpful for customers, because if, again, going back to fashion, if I want to buy a handbag or a jumper and maybe it is more expensive, so let's say I want a Chanel handbag and it's £5,000 and I'm like, ooh, it's a bit of a stretch. If I want that handbag and I know that I'll just go, do you know what, it's £5,000, I'm just going to save a little bit more money, I'm just going to think about it, and then I'll probably get it in a few months. If I know they've got an unlimited amount of Chanel handbags, I know that there's no rush. But if they say, yeah, Vic, we've only got 1 more, and then there's going to be no more available for the next 2 years, I'm like, right, I'll just get it now then. So sometimes people just need that little bit of a push and a little bit more of a nudge to get them going and to make a decision. Okay, so moving on to the next one, which is a bit more of a personal one that's aside from business and sales and things like that, is this is something that I need to do more, actually. So this is a note to myself, is to align a goal with a reward, because we are simple as human beings. Like, we're like little children. And I think when we have goals in life as business owners or whoever we are, whatever we do, we work towards these goals, we achieve them, and then what? Like, there's nothing there. We don't actually reflect on our goals very often. So I think it's really important that when you are setting goals, that they need to be aligned with a prize or a reward to yourself. So whether that is, okay, when we hit 100K on Instagram, we're going to go and celebrate and have a team meal. And I almost like to plan them ahead of time. So it might be when I've made, I don't know, a set amount of money for the month, like whatever my target revenue is, I'm going to treat myself to a Chanel handbag or whatever it is that you want. And it just makes you reflect on that goal a little bit more and like unconsciously attach that to whatever it is that you've bought. So whenever you've got that Chanel handbag, you're thinking, oh, that was when I hit that money milestone. And I just think it's something that we need to do a bit more as business owners, is just reward ourselves for things. It's something that I want to do a lot more, but I just haven't had time to be honest. I'll try and reward things in little ways, like if we have done really well, we'll just go out for a meal or something. But I do actually want to start thinking of, you know, big things that I want. It might be a holiday that I want to go on that I've been thinking about going on for ages, and I might align that with a massive goal. So I think that's really important. Next one I've wrote down is called the marshmallow experiment, which was done in 1972. So children were given a choice: 1 marshmallow now, or 2 if you wait 15 minutes later. I feel like there's been stuff about this on TikTok a little bit. So the follow-up study basically said that the children who had waited longer had better outcomes in life. So they had like higher test scores, better careers, relationships, blah, blah, blah. So this goes back to something that I've spoken a little bit about before, which is delayed gratification and how important that is for us as entrepreneurs. So we like, as humans, again, going back to psychology, we like to have instant gratification. We like to get instant reward, instant results. And our brain really struggles to do things that don't give us that. So many of us say, I need to go to the gym every day, or I want to start posting on social media. And the reason why we give up so soon is because we don't get the reward and we don't get the gratification. So you go to the gym, you've been for a week, you've pushed yourself really hard, and you've not lost any weight or you don't feel any better, so you give up. You've been posting on social media for 30 days and you've only gained 15 followers, and you're like, what's the point? And it's so important for us as entrepreneurs to think about the longer term vision. And it's something that all of us struggle with, like every single one of us. There's so many people I know that are like, oh, I'd love to be a full-time content creator, but they aren't willing to commit for a whole year of posting every day to, in the end, result-wise, getting delayed gratification and getting paid an insane amount a month, getting to work with incredible brands, going on incredible brand trips. They aren't willing to wait that long. So I thought that was quite an interesting case study that I hadn't heard of. And it hasn't really given me a solution either. I think that's just life. But I do think that we need to think about, again, the long-term vision rather than short-term. Then we've got habit stacking. I feel like we have all heard of habit stacking. I think it mainly came about more from Atomic Habits, which was a book. And it was basically just saying like how you can discipline yourself more, stick to more habits. And if you've not heard of it, it's basically where you think of one habit that you do every day that's like like brushing your teeth. We do that every day. We don't really need to think about it. It's done. It could be making your bed. And you stack another habit on top of it. So it could be while you're brushing your teeth, you do squats and you're getting your exercise in. It could be while I drive to work, which is something I do every day. It's a habit. I'm listening to an audiobook. So I've been trying to think of things that I do already in my life where I can stack onto it. For me, it has been audiobooks. So I've said I wanted to read more this year. And I'll listen to either like empowering podcast audiobooks. I'll listen to business audiobooks. I'll listen to more, like TED Talks while I'm driving. And that's where I get my education and my learning from. And then in the evening, that's when I read like my fiction books, like my thriller, horror, romance, all of that jazz. So habit stacking is so clever. And then a little thing that I've seen that I believe Grace Beverly made this up was the quick ticks. So when you are doing your to-do list every morning, instead of just writing out everything you need to do, sectioning it into like quick ticks, non-negotiables, and then like tasks that are going to take you maybe half an hour or more. So the easiest thing to do when you've got a massive to-do list that I'm guilty of having, and I need to do this more, is sectioning your to-do list into which one of these tasks is going to take me less than 5 minutes to do. And it's probably more than you think, because sometimes it's like, oh, I need to message this person. I need to book this in. Realistically, it'll take you 5 minutes to do. So I will section out my to-do list in the day with quick ticks, non-negotiable things that need to happen. And then it might be like bigger, bulkier tasks that take over an hour, but they might not be a non-negotiable. And it just makes us feel like we can take more off of our to-do list. And I love it. Next, I wanted to speak a little bit about the mindset side. So there'll be some people that wholeheartedly believe in mindset and the manifestation side of mindset and all the woo-woo jazz, which I love. And there'll be some people that are like, no. But if we go away from the woo-woo for a minute and just look at the scientific evidence behind visualization, particularly, not manifesting, it is 100% true and backed up by science. So visualization is massive, and it's something that I love to do when I'm really focused on something and I really want it. And it is just closing your eyes and visualize yourself, finishing that thing, how you would feel, what you can see and hear around you. And I've not wrote it down here, but there was a study about athletes. Let me try and get this right. And I think 50% of the athletes did the thing, whether that was running or whatever. And the other 50% visualized that they had done it. And there was some sort of similarity between the two, which I won't be able to tell you, but it basically just proved that the visualization was real. So people have visualized themselves finishing something before they do it. Runners visualize themselves finishing the finish line and like what place they will come in. I love a bit of visualization, is the point that I'm trying to make. I did not state on this podcast that I'm smart, okay? So I don't need to be smart. I'm business smart. I'm not common sense smart. Okay, so next we've got the one again that Vicky loves to speak about, which is changing the environment when you want to change a habit. So making success easier by altering your surroundings. So if you're like me and you love to sleep and you don't like waking up early, leaving your phone in another room while you're asleep, so that when your alarm goes off, you have to get out your bed, walk to the other room and get your phone. That has been the one and only thing that has worked for me to wake up earlier. And I've tried everything. If I'm desperate about I need to wake up at that certain time. The phone has to go in the room next door. The next one is like, putting your gym clothes out the night before, just like setting yourself up for success, changing your environment. If you're constantly eating really shitty, awful foods, just don't buy it and just buy healthier foods. I know that sounds really simple, and sometimes you hate yourself for it. Because I go through these like phases where I'm like, I'm going to be really healthy. I'm going to like, buy loads of nice stuff and like granola snacks. And then I'm like in another phase a few days later where I just want to eat crap. And I've only got the little granola bars and I'm like, oh, why did I do that to myself? Okay. So next one we've got is the foot in the door technique. So starting with a small ask before making a bigger one. So it could be, and I like to use this kind of differently to what this case study is saying. So someone here is saying, asking someone to review a paragraph before sending them a full report. But how I like to use the foot in the door technique, if you will, is it helps me get something done. So I will think about a big, overwhelming task that I have to do. So say starting a podcast, that is such a huge, big, overwhelming task. But how I like to use this technique is thinking, what is the smallest thing I can do in that task that's going to get it started? So it'll be message the people who I want to create my podcast or the producers, send them a message. If it's that you are like, this year, I really want to grow my personal brand. Like that is such a big, vague task that is like, you could easily put it off. So start with something small, book in a content studio for 2 hours, book in a strategy session with someone, us, and get it out the way. Start off with something small is how I always will overcome bigger tasks. So we've done scarcity and urgency, only 3 spots left, etc., etc. Anchoring the price. So this again is a sales technique where you're starting off with the highest price to really scare people, being like, whoa, and then anchoring it down to a better option to make them feel like they've gotten a better option. So it could be that you're like, usually we sell this for £5,000 a month, but what I'm going to do for you here, I want to do 3,000. You make them feel like they've gotten a good offer from you. Or it could be that you say, we've got 3 options here. One's 5K, one's 3K, and one's 1K. And most likely people go for the middle option. And I've done a little thing in here about the decoy pricing, which is one of my favorite. This is one of the first things I learned about the psychology of selling, which was the decoy pricing. So it's like how you go to the cinema and there's the 3 different popcorn sizes. They use is it the middle one as the decoy? I believe. Yeah, they use the middle one as the decoy. So they'll have small, medium, large. So the large popcorn could be £3.75. The middle one could be £3.50. And the small one can be £1.50. So in your head, you're going, I don't really want a small popcorn because who actually gets a small popcorn? No one. So you're like, I'm just going to get the middle popcorn. And I'm like, actually, for 15p extra, you can actually upgrade to large. And you're like, who wouldn't want to do that? It's 15p extra. But they know that who in their right mind would go for the middle popcorn? No one. It doesn't make any sense. For 15p extra, you can go bigger. So you can do that with your own prices. You could do, so there's an example here, £100 for basic, £150 for premium, or £150 for premium plus a bonus. So you're like, well, why would I not go for that one? Like that was the decoy, but it's making people go for the top offer. Amazing. So next we've got a book that I read that I always get confused what it's called. It's either 47 Laws of Power or 48 Laws of Power. And it's basically, apparently it's like a really dangerous book. I think I've mentioned this before in another podcast episode, but it's going over how to win power over people. And whilst I don't agree with everything that it says, I think one of my favorite takeaways from that book is using absence to increase respect and honor, which is something now that I live by. And I think it does correlate with psychology because the more we see something in our brains, the more common it is and the less value that it holds. So say, for example, we see cats everywhere. So we see people have pet cats. They're roaming around the streets. I love a cat. I'll just preface by saying. But to us, they're something that we see every day. So they're not special. And I love cats and I think they are special. But they are everyday things that we see. Whereas a tiger, that is not something that we see every day. So to us, it's more exciting. You want to take pictures of it and it holds more value than a cat. So think of yourself as like the tiger. You don't want to be a cat. You don't want to be at every single networking event, at every single business event, on every single podcast. You don't want to be everywhere, because the more people are seeing you, the less valuable you are and the less special you are. So I think it's actually a good thing for us business owners, because we feel like we have to be at everything, feel like we have to be at every event. We have to go to everyone's event opening, party, whatever. But I actually think it favors you more sometimes to not go, because if people are seeing you all the time, it's not special. And I think that just blew my mind when I heard that. So that's one that I wanted to add in there particularly. So the next one is about when you have clients or customers that are perhaps quite difficult to work with or that are unhappy, which we all get in business. No business has 100% 5-star reviews. I actually saw an amazing post on social media the other day. I can't remember what the girl was called. And she basically posted about the wonders of the world. So it was like the Eiffel Tower, the pyramids. What else is a wonder of the world? Statue of Liberty? Who knows? And they were basically going through the reviews. And if you think about the Eiffel Tower, it's so iconic. Everyone knows her. Everyone loves her. And there were some 1-star reviews that people had left on the Eiffel Tower being like, boring. What was it? Like a statue of steel, like so uninspiring. And the point is that you can't please everyone. That's why I was trying to get with that. So when you have clients or customers that aren't happy, again, as easy as it is for you to want to push back and for you to fight your corner and argue and blah, 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 instead of arguing with clients or customers, find a solution. Because I have found that when you have a disagreement with a client or a customer, it's usually because expectations weren't met or their expectations were different than what you had set out. Sometimes they're just a bit of an arse. And there is sometimes no use in you going back and trying to say what you want to say and get your point across. And sometimes it's just easier to find a solution. So it's actually more mature and respectful to say, I hear you, I apologize, let's try and find a solution. Even if you're thinking in your head, you massive idiot, what are you talking about? Try and find a solution together that works is a lot easier to do and take the emotion out of it. And the final one that I'm going to leave you on is one that I would say all the most successful people I know do. I have definitely always done this my whole life. And it is that you should be making decisions within 5 seconds or less, not less. Making decisions fast. And this is because the more you overthink things and the more you're a perfectionist and you're like, do you know what, this year I want to grow my Instagram, I want to grow my personal brand, but I'm such a perfectionist and I don't want to put any content out because it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to align with my brand value and tone of voice, and it's not perfect. It's just never going to happen. The most successful people I know just do things. They say they want to do it and they do it. I wanted to start a podcast. I messaged someone about starting a podcast. It could be that you want to start a business. Can you trademark the name? Can you just get it done fast and then worry later? And I know that sounds like really poor advice, but that is literally how I have managed my way in business. I make decisions really, really fast and then I think about the consequences later. So when I did, I basically made this bag a few months ago that said, what was it about social media? Yes, I'm taking social media content and I'm getting paid a lot for it. And I printed it onto a bag because we always get people staring at us in the street when we take social media content. And it literally went viral on Instagram, had so many likes and comments, and everyone's like, I need this bag, I need this bag. So I was like, oh, there's obviously a need for it, so I'm going to sell it. Within the next 24 hours, I'd made a website, the bags were up for sale, and I was getting sales in. And it's as easy as that. And yes, it looked a bit shit. The website looked awful. Yes, there were a few hiccups. There was like some people that were in different countries that couldn't order it and I had to tweak it, but it got done. Whereas most people would go, oh my gosh, right, so I need to sell these bags. I'm going to have to start a whole new business and with a whole new name. And is it the right this? Is it the right that? And then it just never gets done. Fast decisions are the way forward. So that was like, I feel like a massive brain dump episode. I really hope you've learned at least something from that episode. But I just love to learn, and I just love the way our brains work as human beings. I think it's fascinating, and why not play into how our brains work to succeed? So if you enjoyed this episode, please listen to me for this bit, because I feel like everyone skips over this when you listen to podcasts. Please can you rate it 5 stars if you're on Spotify or Apple? Subscribe if you're listening to us on YouTube. Please like the video, leave a comment. It is so appreciated. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to DM me about it, or you want to chat about whatever I've spoken about, send me a DM on Vicky Owens. And yeah, I will see you in the next episode of Business Class.